Hey everyone, it's Kim. I just wanted to check in with you to let you know that the sound quality might not be the best on the upcoming episode, and we're really sorry about that. We are working out the kinks currently and trying to make sure that future episodes sound so much better. Also, if you ever hear my dog in the background, I'm really sorry about that. She's just passionate about life and this podcast. Talk to you soon.
Confidently controversial. Confidently controversial. Confidently controversial.
Hello, and welcome to Confidently Controversial. I am your host, or one of your hosts, Emily Paul, and the other host is
Kim Tweed.
We're so good at starting this show.
Yeah, we're really getting the hang of this quickly, guys. So quickly.
Look out, world,
Right.
because we are podcast queens. So, as every week on our show, we will be talking about a movie from our youth and discussing it. But before we get into that, how you doing, Kim?
I'm okay, Emily. How are you doing?
Good.
You're good?
I'm okay.
It's early. It's Sunday morning.
It is. I have not had my full coffee yet.
Okay.
So I'm going to have to do that. I have nothing crazy to report. It's been a very busy weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And I will this week. So this week I picked the movie.
Yeah.
Struggled.
You did?
So much struggle.
You have a really long list, though, to work from.
I know, but that's the hard part, is that there's so many movies and I just start thinking of like all these different ones.
Uh-huh.
And then I get really like in loops. I seriously vetted this to several different people, like a list of okay, which do you think is better? But at the end of the day, I still don't feel, whatever about it. But the reason I selected this movie is because it definitely had an impact on me. And part of this show is really discussing the movies that had an impact on our childhoods in some way, shape, or form, or influenced us, or just, were just movies that were around that maybe shaped who we are a little bit.
Okay.
I don't know that this movie shaped who I am, but I definitely know that it impacted me.
Okay.
So I'm going to start letting you in.
Okay. I'm nervous about this one, I feel like it's going to go off the rails here.
Okay. I don't think that it will. I'm curious as to whether or not you've seen this movie.
Okay.
So this is from 1983. Because I really wanted to pick a movie from earlier in the 80s. So 1983, we're babies.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we're 6-year-old babies.
Yeah, so we're kindergarten.
Yes, we're probably kindergarten, but I'm going to guess that by the time we saw, because I know that I saw this with HBO.
Okay.
And as we've probably mentioned before, like if it was on HBO, we probably you would just watch it over and over again while it was on HBO. So I recall this one being HBO. I recall being very little child. This is a horror movie.
Oh man. Did you watch this when you were a kid? Okay.
So my dad loves a horror movie, but like a horror movie to him, like when my dad grew up in Wildwood, New Jersey.
Okay.
And he would go to the movies and see you have to think of the horror movies from the early 60s.
Okay.
Like The Blob and these ones that are like Them with the big ants, like the kind of horror movies that aren't that scary.
Right.
But
they're super fake looking.
Right. But he still likes a horror movie. He thinks it's funny. He laughs when there's things.
Part of your trauma.
Oddly enough, my daughter is exactly the same way. Like she enjoys a horror movie very much so. This movie, I can very clearly remember my entire family gathering in our living room to watch this movie.
Okay.
And I remember the first scene in particular having a part in it that scared me so much. I think I might have cried.
Okay. No.
And I may have peed my pants a little bit.
No. Okay.
And then I proceeded to watch the rest of the movie from the we had like another living room called the sunken living room because you walked down a step, but you could see into.
Oh, yeah.
So I kind of watched it. And then I ended up watching the whole thing the next day.
Uh-huh.
And, other times thereafter as it was on HBO. But I would watch with my sister who would tell me, oh, don't watch, like, here, look away.
Sure.
But still, I think that this movie gave me so much anxiety around jump scares that even to this day, if I'm watching a movie, I'm so afraid of that a jump scare is going to happen.
Uh-huh.
And it just ruined me for any kind of horror movies for the rest of my life.
Okay.
So this movie is actually 4 stories in one. It features 4, like, kings of the 80s directors.
Okay.
All right. So we're talking about John Landis, Steven Spielberg, Joe Dante, George Miller.
Okay.
Do you have any idea of the movie that I'm talking about?
No, I don't. Not at all.
Okay. This movie is The Twilight Zone.
Oh, okay.
Have you seen it?
I don't think so. I mean, I've seen the show, but there's
Like the old show you saw?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've seen the show, I mean, a lot of times. My husband is
Well, that's why. So when I came up to the podcast loft today, and I saw Kim's husband, and he mentioned being in on the show, I was like, oh, this might be the one. This might be one for you. But yeah, this is. I can't believe you never saw this one.
I don't know. I might have. Is there one with bugs?
No.
Oh, then no. About.
Well, then I'm just going to tell you a little bit about it. And there's also some controversy around it as well.
Oh, okay.
So it's based on the Rod Serling classic. It features 4 stories. So I'm going to go back through the directors. So John Landis and Steven Spielberg directed 2 of the segments, and they also produced the movie. So Steven Spielberg, we all know him, right? Jaws.
E.T.
E.T. All the major things, Married to Kate Capshaw.
We've already discussed her.
We've already discussed her at length, so we all know Steven Spielberg. John Landis, Animal House, American Werewolf in London, 3 Amigos, Coming to America, and another thing that scared me in my youth, Thriller, the video with Michael Jackson. Joe Dante is of the Gremlins franchise, directed all those. Inner Space, the movie Explorers. I don't know if you remember that. And also The Burbs.
One of my favorites.
I know. And then George Miller, he did all of the Mad Max movies, including Fury Road.
The
newer one. Yeah, but he's also done Lorenzo's Oil, which, I don't know if you ever saw that. That movie made me cry more than any movie I've ever seen in my life.
I don't understand. There's nothing appealing to me about that title. Oil? Come on.
It's really a sad
movie about oil. I don't like it.
He also directed Witches of Eastwick.
Okay.
That's a great movie.
Sure. I was allowed to watch that movie.
Sexy.
Yeah, that's why.
It's really sexy. I read that book, and I remember the book was like really set. Like, I probably shouldn't have been allowed. Like, I read the book in middle school, and it was sexy. Yeah. And he also
free for all at the Rosenberg house. Watching scary movies, reading lewd books. What happened over there?
No, one day my parents may or may not listen to this, and they'll be like, "What?" And
it was fine.
And, and then they'll want to talk about it. And I'll be like, "I don't want to talk about it." So, but yeah, George Miller also directed Babe, Pig in the City, and the original Babe. So, powerhouse director. It has a huge cast of, a lot. You'll recognize a lot of the people in this movie, but Dan Aykroyd is in it.
Okay.
Albert Brooks, John Lithgow is in it. So
there's 4 different.
There's 4 different segments. So you want to think of it in terms. They kind of tried to follow after the original Twilight Zone model, which is like
smaller stories,
anthology series.
Okay.
All in the same kind of genre of things. 2 of these stories are remakes of actual Twilight Zone stories.
Episodes,
and then 2 of them are new.
Okay.
New content.
Right. Well, I hate all of this so far.
so interested to see if you are interested in any of this. The controversy of this, which you may or may not have heard of, because it was actually kind of a big deal. So John Landis, in his segment, two people got killed on the set while making the movie. So they had, and two of them were children.
Oh my
of the people that got killed. So the children were hired illegally, and they shouldn't have been. There's all kinds of rules around kids that are in movies, and one of which is that they can't be close to special effects like that have explosions and stuff, and they can't work at night. Like there's all these rules. Well, they broke all those rules, and these kids, like I believe it was a helicopter crash, and people died. Yeah, and John Landis never. No one ever got in trouble for it.
And they just released the movie like regular and nothing ever.
Well, it was a big story in the news when it happened. Like I feel like I knew about it when I was younger.
Okay.
And I also think that I'm fairly certain that maybe My Favorite Murder or another podcast has done a story on it before. Okay. Because it was a pretty big deal thing, like when it happened.
You were just paying attention to so many things when you're 6 years old that I just wasn't aware of.
Well,
just watching the news, watching horror movies.
I was just terrified.
Had a subscription to HBO. I was reading sexy books.
I wasn't reading sexy books when I was 6. I was a middle school kid. Come on. But yeah, so it was a big deal that these kids died. And just overall, the movie was received pretty well. Kind of a mixed bag because it's a mixed movie with different segments.
Right.
The two, I won't go into what everyone got, like stars wise. We can talk about that after because I really want, since you've never seen this.
Not that I recall. I'm
so surprised that you haven't seen this movie.
We'll see. I don't really want to watch it now.
Well, I'm going to make you watch this movie.
All right. I'm ready.
Well,
yes.
See, now maybe I chose poorly.
Don't feel bad. It's going to be all right.
Is it?
Yeah, it's going to be fine. Steven Spielberg. Hooray.
Okay. Well, I also feel like it's going to be reliving. I am actually legitimately a little bit scared to watch it.
Did you tell me about the stars of it? Oh, Dan Aykroyd.
Yeah, like Dan, but it's because it's like an anthology. There's all different. Scatman Carruthers is in it. Do you not remember him from The Shining?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay. So, but I'm legitimately a little bit scared to watch it. I feel like it's one of those movies. There's like this movie, Poltergeist was another one that I was allowed to watch as a like same age, and it just like gave me so much anxiety. I didn't like being scared. Yeah. I still don't like being scared.
We weren't really allowed to watch horror movies. I mean, we watched Gremlins.
Right.
And then there's the infamous story of begging my dad, him to stop at the video store to rent Goonies. And
that's not really a horror movie, is
it? Wait.
Okay.
Begging him to be like, please. Like, oh, come home from work, rent Goonies. It's going to be great. We want to see Goonies. And he went to the video store and he brought home Ghoulies instead. And then,
is that the one where they're like in the toilet?
Yeah, so that thing pops out of the toilet. Oh, so we had to watch it because it was probably $4.99.
I spent good money renting this movie.
You're gonna watch it. You said Goonies, I heard Ghoulies from watching it. So it's not my fault. And we had to watch it. But really, other than that, I don't really feel like we watched a lot of horror movies.
Yeah, I remember Ghoulies. I don't think I watched Ghoulies. To me, I remember horror movies being the kind of thing where you would go to a sleepover party and the parents would let you rent, maybe like 3 or 4 videos because they knew you were going to be up all night. So you would have these movies to choose from. In that mix of movies, there was usually at least one horror movie that was in the mix. I feel like Ghoulies was in there. Critters was always like, I feel like that was around for a while. Gremlins scared me too.
It's scary. I mean,
it is a scary movie.
It's a scary movie.
Yeah. It's a Christmas movie.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I feel like you're really upset about what I chose to watch.
I'm not. I'm excited. I can't wait. Let's do it. Let's be
love it.
scared.
Well, if all of you could see the look on Kim Tweet's face, you would know that she does not seem excited about this.
Is there a
all.
helicopter crash in the movie?
Like, I remember seeing the footage on TV when they were talking about the filming of the movie and what went wrong with it.
I see.
But when I was going back and reading through, I know which one it's a part of. But I don't, like I said, I have not seen this movie since I was a child. And that's the other thing that I'm kind of interested to see is how actually scary it is.
You know what it's rated? What is it rated?
Oh, I don't know. I should have looked.
Well, we'll find out.
We can find out what the rating is for sure. But if it's pre, see, that was the thing too. Like pre-Raiders of pre-Temple of Doom, it was like all loosey goosey. I wouldn't be surprised if it's like PG because there's no sex in it. Like it's not a sexy movie. It's it definitely is scary, but it's Twilight Zone. Twilight Zone was a TV show.
Yeah, and I feel like they were psychologically scary. They weren't necessarily jump scary, were they?
This Twilight Zones? Yeah. This movie, if my recollection as a child is correct, and God knows that, my childhood recollections are all spot on.
Sure.
There's a scene early on in this movie where there's a jump scare.
Okay. And
that just I was like, I'm out. I'll be curious to see if that is actually the case.
Okay.
But that's my memory of it. Also, like, there's one of the sketches or the segments in particular that I remember very clearly being very disturbing to me as a kid. And that one stuck with me quite a bit. I also feel like at least a couple of these, and I think the two that are based on, I don't know if they're based on the Twilight Zone ones or not, but I know at least two of these. I remember The Simpsons doing send-ups of them. So they're definitely like
iconic.
They're iconic. So I feel like you're going to watch it and you're going to be like, oh yeah, like I know, I've heard of this thing. I remember it in some way.
Let's do it.
All right. I'm a little scared, but let's go watch it. And we'll be back to talk more about the Twilight Zone movie.
Confidently controversial. Confidently controversial.
And we're back. It's the midnight special. Shine light on me. It's funny because in the middle of the movie, I texted my brother and sister and just said, do you guys remember watching this movie as a kid? And, of course they did. And both were just like, oh my God, this is so scary. This is so scary. And my sister texted and said, since you texted me about the movie, I can't get Midnight Special out of my head.
Yeah, it's going to be stuck in my head all day too.
All right, so since you've never seen this movie before, I'm going to go ahead and let you start off the conversation, Kim.
Where do I even start? Where? It was a true 80s horror, scary movie.
It's like, would you consider it like sci-fi?
Yeah, I guess more sci-fi than horror.
Although I don't know what the fucking difference is. I'm sorry.
So much happened. It just didn't happen. There's so much to say and not say.
Well, let me give a synopsis.
Okay, just tell the people,
and in case you're like country watcher. Yeah, I don't know if I'd recommend anybody watch this.
You don't need to.
You don't need to. It's fine. So this movie, as we talked about before, it's 4 different segments. And it starts out with, you got Dan Aykroyd in the car with Albert Brooks, 2 fantastic fine actors. And I was correct. There's a jump scare in the beginning that is a pretty scary. Like, I am an adult person. I knew it was coming. I knew what it was. And yet still I could not, like, as it was building up to that point, I could not look at the screen.
She was terrified. It wasn't that scary.
It was
like a mask. Bad mask.
It was scary. I was scared.
I understand. 6-year-old I might be very frightened. However, it was not.
It was scary. Well, so then
He's like, I'm going to do this thing. Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? And you were like, okay. Do it. And then it was like, and I was like a scary, like a monster.
Oh,
Scary blue Halloween.
no, I was so scared. I didn't want to see it. And then you have 4 different segments. So the first segment is the controversial one.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that, because as we were watching, I did a little bit more looking into this one. So the first segment is the one that was directed by John Landis, and it features, a man who is very racist. It's like
there's a huge racist tirade beginning of the movie, and I was like, oh god, here we go.
Like
there's going to be the one.
Right. Like they're throwing out words here that in today's world, like you can't say those words.
No, you couldn't really say them. I mean, they were said, but I think they're still quite inappropriate. It was very uncomfortable.
It was very uncomfortable to watch. I mean, I understand
PG.
Yes, and I understand that. Like, I mean, today PG movie would never have those words in it. Like the N word was said multiple times. Like derogatory terms towards Jewish people were said.
Towards Japanese
people. Like all the words you can think of.
Every word you can imagine to use to describe these groups.
All the worst ones.
All the worst ones.
All the worst ones. And even the middle ground. I mean, every single word was said. But the thing that was crazy about, that I found most crazy, because I understand they're trying to set up his character as like a huge racist.
Yes.
Which I feel like you could do without all of that. But they really went over the top.
They really leaned into it.
They really leaned into it. And they had the guy who was the sergeant from 21 Jump Street was there, who is a black man. And so he's overhearing this whole tirade that's going on because it's happening in a bar in public where other people are hearing it. And they're like, this guy's a jerk. But I feel like in today's day and age, it'd be like, you need to leave
and never
come back. This man, the black man's reaction to this is to say, I don't care what you think as long as we don't have to hear it.
Right.
Which is just crazy to me that was what we say to a terrible, bigoted, racist jerk.
Right.
In a bar.
Sure.
But so that happens, and then he leaves. And he's put in all these different situations, like he's time jumping.
And the assumption is that he is, like the first one is World War II, France, and we're to assume that he's a Jewish person.
Right. And that he runs into some Nazis. The Nazis see him as a Jewish person. He's running away from them. Then we time jump, and now John Larroquette. A young John Larroquette is a KKK member. There's all the guys in like the hoods, and they're obviously see him as a black person. They're going to hang him.
Right.
Then we time jump, and we're in Vietnam.
Right.
And he is running away from U.S. military.
Yes.
And then we time jump back to where he's a Jew, and he's being put on a train car and being
presumably to like a concentration camp.
Yes, with other Jewish people, and that's kind of how it ends. Now, in reality, the way that was shot, there was a scene that was taken out where I guess they were trying to have him be a little bit redeemed before he died, and he was going to be saving 2 young Vietnamese children.
Okay.
And a helicopter, I guess he's trying to like save them by getting into the helicopter. Or a helicopter trying to get them. I don't know. There's a helicopter involved.
Right.
And he had these 2 kids, and the helicopter was too low, and the helicopter crashed and killed him and the children.
Unbelievable.
Here's what I find most unbelievable about this. That was the first segment shot in all of the different things. Yet they continued to finish the movie.
Yeah. So that one was shot, and then
first.
The other 3.
The other 3
shot afterwards.
Yes.
Okay.
So John Landis directed the opening scene with Dan Aykroyd, and he directed the one where the person, Vic Morrow, was the name of the actor, and then there was 2 children who passed away. Now, as a result of that, huge
changes in the movie industry, right?
yes, but it was a big like apparently John Landis and Steven Spielberg, like they were friends when going into this, never to be friends again.
Okay.
It was a big deal where he got away, like John Landis didn't, like he got out of it with all, had a bunch of lawyers and everything else.
About how he, well, I guess you said it in the beginning too. He wanted these kids to be able to work at night. He wanted to kind of,
yeah, he pushed the envelope. And there's I mean, there's definitely there's a lot of controversy around what happened in that moment. There's some people who were on set who said that they heard him saying like, no, bring the helicopter lower. So, but, like it was a big deal thing where it's amazing that he still worked after that.
I mean, if you look at the other movies that he made, I mean, he was very successful.
Right.
Interesting.
So he wasn't in trouble. And like, there was another thing I read that had to do with Eddie Murphy, because Eddie Murphy, because he directed Trading Places. So he wanted Eddie Murphy to be like a character witness at the trial, but Eddie Murphy wouldn't. And he said in an interview later that, he was like, well, I don't have any, problem with him. I guess he thinks, because he would like say these things later, like, oh, you weren't there for me when I needed you to be. And Eddie Murphy kind of implied that like, he didn't think it was too cool what happened.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So, as a result, it definitely impacted the way safety on sets. So that's a good thing. But crazy to me how and at the end of the movie, there's no acknowledgement of the fact that Vic Morrow died making the movie. There's no acknowledgement of the children who died in the movie either.
I know. It's true because you watch TV shows now and even like an executive producer or, someone that worked tangentially on the film, they'll say in the beginning in
memoriam
or something, and an acknowledgement of their work or just the fact that they gave.
Well, this is so 80s to me.
Oh yeah, just brush it over and let's move on.
Let's just move on. And the fact that they shot this one first and then they continued to do the movie. I guess there was some talk of, well, we don't want to go on with it, but I guess they decided to kind of continue anyway and shoot the other segment.
What makes you think right now? So, I mean, think about everything that's going on right now with Alec Baldwin and that Rust movie. And that movie won't ever come out.
No.
No. And I think that, and he's going to go on trial. Right. For possibly shooting this person.
Right.
He claims accidentally. He claims he didn't know that there was anything in the gun.
Right.
But it killed the director of the movie?
I believe so. I have to say, I don't know too much about that whole thing that happened. I am a fan of Alec Baldwin, very much so. So, it's hard to, you want him to have done the right thing, but who knows? I mean, I really do think that sometimes on these film sets, it seems to me that it's just, the wild, wild west sometimes,
I think it's so disconnected too, especially now with very famous actors. I mean, my assumption would be that as an actor, you're nowhere near the set when they're setting up the scenes or loading guns or doing things like that. So, there would be even less.
And this movie too, it wasn't like a big budget. The Rust movie wasn't like a big budget movie. So I also have to think, are there corners cut? Do you have people that like on a big budget movie, you probably have like a whole crew of people that their entire job is to keep the set safe and do all these other things. But on a smaller movie, maybe you don't have that many people who are doing it. I don't know.
Obviously, this wasn't the first movie, most likely, where someone died on set.
No.
It definitely wasn't the last movie. Because you had The Crow when we were teenagers.
I remember that, yeah.
So it's interesting how all this stuff kind of continues, especially the ones with the guns, because how does that even happen?
Right. I know. And I just think with this, it was, again, tragedies happen. This was obviously a tragedy. Who knows exactly what happened. That led to the death of these three people. But, it's just, I think the thing that's most surprising to me is, again, it was a big deal, but you just You could watch that movie and never know about the tragedy that happened with that movie. So that's, to me, that's pretty crazy.
When we were kids, and it was on, like you said, HBO. You just turn it on in the middle of the day or the night, and it's just on the TV, and you don't have IMDb, and you don't have any kind of way to search it. It's not going to be in the encyclopedia. No. So,
well, I mean, it's all I could think about, though, watching that segment. All I could think about was like, oh my gosh, this is that guy's last thing. Right. This is the last thing that this actor ever shot, was this movie. And, and apparently he was like really afraid of his last words to someone were like, I got to be crazy for doing this stunt, for not asking for a stunt double for this. So it's just awful. So that definitely, aside from the movie itself, I mean, that segment was weird. I don't even know that it was that scary. It was definitely a little weird.
Yeah, it was, let's set aside the tragedy of it all.
Yeah.
It was just a weird thing.
It wasn't that good. The second segment was directed by Steven Spielberg. Yeah.
I'm glad he got better. That's all I'm going to say.
Starring Scatman Carruthers. And this is definitely a trope. That's
100%.
That's been in a lot of like movies and TV.
Out more recently, for sure.
Has like the magical person who is usually a black person who comes in and like solves problems, know?
Yeah.
And that's what this is. This was a man, Scatman Carruthers, and
he seems to go from retirement home to retirement home. To share his kick the can skills.
He offers people, I guess, the opportunity to be young again, to have their, to live, to live their lives again, basically, if they'd like to. And, all these people get this opportunity to do that. Most of them choose not to. But I think it's interesting, the one that did choose to stay young again, he, for some reason, came back as like a teenager.
Yeah, he was definitely older than the rest.
Right. Like the rest come back and they're like 6-year-olds.
Very young.
They're very young. And of course they don't, like, the one girl's like, well, who's going to take care of me?
Right. Where am I going to sleep tonight?
Right. Like, I'm a little girl. Like, you can't expect me to just go out into this world. But the one who's like a teenager, he's like, oh no, I'm fine.
He's also said something about having sex.
Oh yeah, he's really all about having sex.
And he's got like his silky pajamas, and he's got the pajama shirt like tied around his neck like a cape.
They make him very much Peter Pan-ish. I think that's kind of the thing with him. But yeah,
he like jumps out the window.
Yeah, and I guess that's in the vein of Twilight Zone, but it's so freaking saccharine. It's like, come on, enough.
Yeah. Again, not good.
Not good. It wasn't good at all.
And you just kind of see the man, so he leaves at the end. He's changed all these old people's lives.
And he walks around the corner where there's another old person home, because God knows there's convalescent homes around every corner in our world.
He's off to change some more lives.
That's right. That's right.
And
so then we have now, interestingly enough, I will say, and I think we've already picked up on it, when it was reviewed at the time, those first two were panned.
Yeah.
So they were given, like Siskel and Ebert, when they, remember them?
Yeah, I do.
So when they reviewed it, they gave the first segment 2 stars.
Okay.
The second segment, they gave 1.5 stars. The third,
generous.
What'd you say?
Generous.
Right. And then the third and fourth segments, they actually gave 3.5 stars.
Both of them?
Both of them each got 3.5 stars. Okay. So we'll go to the third segment, which was Joe Dante, who directed Gremlins. I thought this was one of the segments that I remembered very well. I did not remember the first 2 segments very much, but this one impacted me greatly. And I would say that of the 4, I found this one the most disturbing.
Okay. Well, these, I think definitely 3 and 4 are definitely that classic sci-fi style.
Yes.
And that something hinky's going on.
We got something hinky happening.
And you're not quite sure what it is, and you got to find out, and you got to keep watching, and you know something scary is going to happen. Something's not quite right.
Right.
So you have that child, Anthony.
Who was
on the Hogan Family.
I know. He had a sweet mullet on the Hogan Family.
Yeah.
The Hogan family was like Jason Bateman was the oldest brother, and then you had this kid and another kid who were supposed to be twins, right?
Right.
Right.
And Sandy Duncan was their mom.
Sandy Duncan was their aunt. Valerie was the mom.
But that's what it was called first.
First,
right?
It was Valerie's family, but then Valerie left the show, and I think they said she died in the movie. In the show. And Sandy Duncan was the dad who was a pilot who was not home very much.
I remember the dad.
Yes, I remember the dad too.
Handsome.
She was a handsome dad. Had 3 handsome sons. And so Sandy Duncan was his sister who came to take care of the kids after their mom died.
Because the dad couldn't make time for them.
Well, he was a pilot, Kim.
He's very busy.
He's very busy flying around the world being a pilot.
Okay. And I don't think that kid, so the kid that's in this was on the Hogan family, was on Valerie's family. I don't remember him from anything else after.
No, I don't think so. I was looking at his IMDb. I think he's had a career like producing and doing other things. I know, I'm happy for him as well. Because I did like him in the Hogan family.
He was pretty good in this too. I mean, he did a decent job, especially he's pretty young. I mean,
oh yeah, he's a little kid in this.
Yeah,
he's a little baby boy.
And the idea is that basically he is kind of this kid that everyone's afraid of because he can control things with his mind.
Now, do you remember? There's a Simpsons with this one. Do you remember the Simpsons with this? And Alex is my husband. Alex always remembers. I don't know if he saw this, but he remembers like the original, seeing the original version that was Twilight Zone. And in the original version of the Twilight Zone, he would wish you into a cornfield if you did something that did not please him.
Okay.
But in this, it was very cartoony.
Yeah.
Which I remembered there being cartoons, but I didn't realize it was like the whole house was like a cartoon house.
So you walk in the house and it's regular, and then you kind of go up the stairs and it's like a black and white cartoon to match the black and white cartoon that's on the TV.
Yes.
And then in the living room, it's very like Roger Rabbity, oversized.
Yes. Very colorful. It is very 50s primetime cafe. If you know, you know. And I found it very creepy.
Yeah, so he has his mom and his dad, who we learn later are not really his mom and his dad, and his uncle and his sister.
Right. His sister, who's Nancy Cartwright, who's the voice of Bart Simpson.
And then he controls them, and they're just like live in fear of this kid. They're obviously not allowed to do anything that they like to do or live their lives because this kid just basically tells them what to do all the time. They eat candy apples and ice cream and peanut butter.
Hamburgers with peanut butter on them?
For dinner.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. And I think I was trying to think of like what is it about this that is would have been the most creepy thing to me as a kid, and I think the way the adults were acting was very scary.
Yeah,
where it was like the adults were very scared, they didn't have control of a situation. I think when you're a kid, like you need an adult that's going to, which I guess is kind of the whole subject of that story is like that boy has no adults in his life that are reining him in any way, shape, or form. So that's why he ends up. You know, the teacher who's just like, yeah, I got nothing else going on. You can come be my son. I'll take care of you, you weirdo.
What's scary about them is that you obviously see that they're not happy, but they are pretending to be happy.
Yes.
So they have these over-animated smiles and over-exaggerated personalities that just make them creepy and clown-like and just over the top.
Yeah. And I didn't remember, like, the things I remembered from that were I remembered the sister that had no mouth.
Yeah, that was terrifying. I did not like that.
No.
That was very Pet Cemetery.
Yeah, I did not like that either. Still. And I remembered the other woman getting wished into the cartoon.
Yes.
And having to run away from it, which as a kid, that was very scary to me. As an adult watching it, like it was definitely very like, I'm on a green screen kind of a thing. But as a kid, I was very scared of it.
Like, can they do that?
Right. But then for some reason, I didn't remember that there's like a really scary bunny rabbit that gets pulled out of a hat.
Yeah.
And then there's like a scary cartoon character-y thing
It's like warts and boils.
Yeah,
and
like a demon that
gross.
comes and like scaring everyone. Like I'm guessing either I didn't watch it because my sister was like, don't watch this part,
Right.
which is probably
Yeah.
why I didn't see it.
Good looking out, Heather.
I know. But but yeah, I definitely did not have any recollection of those parts.
Well, the Bunny Rabbit was legit, and I think it's probably where they spend most of their budget for this entire movie. Because it was very, they did a good job.
Right.
And they only used it for a very short period of time.
I know. Well, you know that uncle, the guy who plays the uncle, was the head of the other TV station in the classic Weird Al classic UHF, which is what I know that guy from. But in the way that like when the woman walks in, they like grab her bag and they're like going through it.
Well, and then they're smoking, and then one of them's like, he doesn't like it when we smoke.
I know. It was very scary. But okay. The weirdest part about it though is that in the end, the new woman that's brought into this, Helen, who's a teacher, is just like, all right, I want to learn from you, and I want to learn about your power, and I want to help you to control it. And they kind of intimate at the beginning of the thing that she's leaving some sort of other life.
She's passing through town.
She's just passing through town.
Accidentally hits this kid with her bike.
Accidentally, but I think they seem to say that the kid made it happen.
Right. Anthony, he did it on purpose.
Anthony did it on purpose. And then in the end, she's just like, all right, come with me. Oh, Anthony, you're making all the flowers bloom, and you made it daytime when it was nighttime. But we're going to be okay, even though all these other people in the house, and you killed your parents. Like, we don't know what happened to your real parents.
And you removed someone's mouth. But I'm not scared of you. Let's go.
Yeah, but I'll be the one who will change you, Anthony. So
and you can just take the kids. You could just take kids in the 80s.
Right. Nobody would ask questions like, where'd you get this kid from? Right. Like, oh, it's Anthony. But in all honesty, the kid's magic and could just be like, here's my birth certificate. Here's my whatever.
He didn't seem to be concerning himself.
He wasn't really concerned. He wasn't really concerned with that. But that one held up. I mean, I think it's still pretty.
It was all right.
It was all right. You just give it an all right?
3.5 stars.
Okay. I'm glad.
I agree with Siskel.
Okay. So the last section is John Lithgow. And he's just so John Lithgow. And
he's John Valentine, air traveler.
Is his name John in this?
Yes. Oh, John Valentine.
John Valentine. So this is the classic, something's on the wing of the airplane.
Yeah.
Some sort of gremlin thing. I remember, it's funny, as I watch this, the thing that I remember most about it and being like a thing that we talked about when I was a kid or whatever is when the monitor puts his hand on John Lithgow's face and then like wags his finger. No. And then flies up into the air back to where he came from in the skies.
Yeah, and the monster is just, again, I don't know. I feel like we say this a lot, but at the same time, it's very 80s because it was like slimy,
right,
and rubbery looking,
right.
But then all of a same time, it had these like long pieces of hair hanging off the back,
right.
But it was just. If you saw it, I guess if I saw it right here, I'd be pretty scared.
Yeah, why are you so brave?
No,
you're like, it's fine. It's not even that scary. It's like, yeah, it is scary. He's like, there's a naked. I did think like this. Okay, first of all, they start this thing where John Lithgow is in the bathroom on the airplane, and like the stewardesses are all like, oh my gosh, how are we going to get him out of there?
Storm, and he has to go back to his seat.
I know, but like they're all concerned about it, but at the same time, it's like. They seem to already know that it's because he's like freaking out, but no one even like entertains the idea that guy might just have some poop problems. That would seem to be that like if I'm ever on an airplane and I'm waiting in line to use the bathroom and someone's in there for a inordinate amount of time, I'm not thinking they're having a panic attack and shoving pills in their face. I'm thinking that they have a bad poop.
Or joining the Mile High Club. It's physically possible on an airplane anymore.
I don't think you could get into one of those things with two people without a stewardess, like someone seeing it happen.
Yeah, but I don't think physically two people would fit into them.
No, but is that how people would have sex for the Mile High Club?
In the bathroom?
Is that where they
Yeah,
did it?
where else would they go?
I don't know, put a blanket over. I don't know.
We have to ask someone that's more familiar with these things.
I don't want to. I don't want to look into it.
Out there has had sex on an airplane. Please let us know how.
We want to know how it's physically possible to make that happen. I mean, I guess it would have to be like a private plane.
Emily,
What?
I think it's more common than you think, or was more common than you think, or was more used in movies.
Was more common on a commercial airliner?
I don't know.
Okay. I mean, now I'm really curious about it, so I'll have to look into it a little bit. Yes, but I feel like the other thing that I remembered was the little girl who's like, "No smoking." NOSMOKING. No smoking.
And she also delivers one of my favorite lines in the movie. You big silly, you used to be a normal person. Which I feel like I say to myself every day in the mirror. You used to be a normal person.
You used to be a normal. What happened to you? Yeah, it's so weird. Like, I mean, definitely, I guess, true to form. Twilight Zone. It was fine. There's a reason why it was a pretty big movie for the time. I don't know if I enjoyed it.
I didn't. Well, you have to talk about it at the end. So, and John Lithgow's character, like, they land the plane, everything's fine.
Right.
He's in the, they take him, they put him in a straitjacket, they put him in an ambulance. He's in the ambulance. They realize that something weird did happen on the wing of the plane because it's all fingernail shredded up.
Sure.
And then he's in the ambulance.
The guy says, "Holy Toledo."
And then it's Dan Aykroyd is the ambulance driver.
Yeah. And I guess he's gonna, and he says, "Do you want to see something real scary at the end?" And they play Midnight Special.
Yeah.
Again. Now
Bringing it around.
Now, I did read that it was originally what they wanted to do was to have different characters from the different segments like intersect at different points, like throughout. Mm-hmm. But it sounds to me like a lot of the mojo for this movie went away when people died, which
as it should have.
Again, I am extremely surprised that they even went forward with.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like in today's day and age, if that had happened, it would just be like, guess we're not making that movie right now. And then maybe 10 years later, someone might say, "Hey, why don't we revisit it?" But it would be completely different.
Right.
It would be different directors. Yeah. It would be different stories.
And there would be a thing in the beginning that was like in memoriam of the
there's no in memoriam. Right. There's nothing. And I just think that I think they also had plans to do more of them.
Because the Twilight Zone series, I mean, I would assume lends itself to this. I mean,
right.
There's a certain supply of them that they could draw from to continue remaking them into movies.
Right. Like if this had been, as big of a thing as it was, or as it could have been if everyone like really put their heart and soul into it, I guess, then they definitely could have done that. Now, I remember, do you remember the anthology series that Steven Spielberg had? Amazing Stories. So that was like a TV show anthology series.
I remember the
very
name
similar.
Of it.
It was very similar to this, where it was like every episode was. I don't know if he directed it. I feel like his name was on it though. I feel like it was like Steven Spielberg's Amazing Stories,
and it was similar. In his career? Where does this fall in Steven Spielberg's career as far as?
This is 1983. And so that would mean that, let's see, it was 1980. Okay.
So in Steven Spielberg's career, he made Raiders of the Lost Ark in 81.
Okay.
Close Encounters of the Third Kind in 77.
Okay.
Jaws in 75.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, he was a
big deal.
And then you have E.T. in 82. And then this was 83. And then Temple of Doom in 84.
So this was like Keith Spielberg.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not surprising to me that I would have thought that he would have distanced himself more from this. I mean, he probably had the power. I mean, who knows what contracts they had back then where it was like, no, you got to make the movie.
Right.
But I mean, all of these are pretty big name people in terms of the movies that they made. I mean, they all have pretty good ones under their belt.
Well, and Didn't it seems Dan Aykroyd continued to work with that director.
John, yeah, because he was in he was in Trading Places. But that was before this movie.
Oh, okay.
I think so. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, John Landis continued to have a huge career. Like, he continued to make a lot of movies after this. I mean, if we look at him, it's like, okay, let's see. Jonathan Landis.
Well, while you're looking that up, I'm going to talk about the fact that you were 6 years old when this was on. And as I said to you in the beginning, I'm going to call Child Protective Services. 6-year-old Emily.
I don't know that I was 6 when I watched it, but I was probably like, I'm going to think, because remember, things took a long time to get to TV.
Or TV.
Yeah. So I feel like I probably saw it, we'll say generously, I was 7 or 8 years old. Like, I was a kid, for sure.
Yeah.
So, okay, so John Landis, you have him in, he did, so you had him, I don't want to look when he's an actor. I don't care about his acting. I care about his directing.
Come on, IMDb.
Come on, be better. Be better, IMDb. Or maybe I should be better and I should know this stuff coming into all this. So with him, you have the Animal House movie was 1978, Blues Brothers in 1980, American Werewolf in London 1981. Trading Places was 1983, and then the same year was Twilight Zone movie.
Okay, so it was, yeah.
And then Thriller came out. Like, he did a lot in 1983. So like his career was booming at the time when all this was going on. So yeah, like,
what did he do after this?
Let's see. So you got the Michael Jackson Thriller video, which was also it was a video, but it was a very big deal. Then he did Disneyland's 30th anniversary TV special. So I don't know, maybe we're dropping a little bit. Into the Night. I don't know that movie. George Burns's Comedy Week. He did the video. He did Spies Like Us.
After.
Yeah, Three Amigos was after.
Okay.
Coming to America was after.
Okay.
He also did Magical World of Disney. He's very involved with Disney. I don't know if I like that. When he did the movie Oscar, do you remember the movie Oscar?
No.
With Sylvester Stallone?
No.
It's in 1991 where he's like, it's like a, I want to say that, who's the one who George Costanza really likes, who was in My Cousin Vinny?
Oh, yeah, that guy.
Well, it's a girl.
Oh, Marissa Tomei.
Marissa Tomei is it?
I thought you were talking about Joe Pesci.
I don't believe that George Costanza and Joe Pesci are connected in any way, shape, or form.
I wouldn't be so sure.
All right. Well, there we have it. I watched this movie as a child. Probably shouldn't have.
Thanks for bringing this into my world, Emily. I really appreciate it.
I know. I want to call my brother and sister after this and just like have a full conversation about like what the heck was happening at the time in the 80s. This was a PG movie. And I really
think too. I was going to say, I mean, if your parents, they were like, oh, it's fine. It's PG.
Right.
There was no indication.
And I mean, aside from just like the scariness of it, like the previously mentioned racist rant that happened, like I don't believe my kids have heard those words in their life.
No. Yeah, that's pretty horrible. I mean, that alone is...
Yeah, like my kids are all good with the regular cursing. Right. Like, I don't have a problem with that. But they know there's certain words that are like, not allowed.
Right, and they probably don't know them. Let's hope.
I would hope they don't know those words. That was pretty bad. Yes. But I guess I knew those words when I was a kid. Because I guess I heard them on the TV movies that my parents would allow me to listen to. So there you go. But all right, well, definitely, I'm going to say a lot of controversy with this one, for sure. And a lot of confident controversy with this because we just went on and continued our full John Landis career after this. Didn't bat an eyelash. People died on our watch, but you know. We're fine with it. So, you know, I don't know. I'm sure other people have strong opinions about it, but I'm going to say, boo John Landis. So.
All right. Do you have a way to bring it all back to Spider-Man?
Well, this is the most important part of our entire show.
It really is.
And you would think that at this point I would have given it a lot more thought going into it. but I didn't.
Okay.
So
We're going to go in and
we're
look.
going to go in, we're going to look, and we're going to connect Spader.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
All right. I got it. And there's a lot of different ways we could go with this. Spader is always there. He's always right there. He's waiting. He's connected. I mean, I know people talk a lot about Kevin Bacon, but you know what? James Spader's in there, man. So here's how we connect them. James Spader was in. Which way should I go? I'm going to go the other way.
You choose.
Okay.
You decide.
Okay. I'm going to do that. Dan Aykroyd, who is in this movie,
He is.
was in Ghostbusters with Bill Murray.
Yes.
Bill Murray
Yes.
was in Groundhog Day with Andy McDowell. Andy McDowell was in Sex, Lies, and Videotape with Mr. James Spader.
Wow, you did it. Good job.
I did it!
Really good.
Thank you. I try.
Excellent work.
Thank you. I try very hard.
Shitty movie. Excellent work.
Well, now I'm scared for what you pick next time because I feel like you're going to punish me for this pick.
It will be a revenge choice.
Oh, no. Well, I guess until next time, be confident.
But don't be controversial.
Na, 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 na.
Confidently controversial. Confidently controversial.